Clint Eastwood at 94 is still shaking up Hollywood. While most actors and directors tiptoe around political correctness, terrified of being cancelled, Clint charges straight through it, refusing to play by their rules. From cracking bold jokes at the Oscars to making films that cut deep, he's never bowed to the woke mob. But in today's culture of outrage, can even a legend like Clint keep defying the odds?
Growing up in the industry was very interesting, although I didn't really grow up in LA, which I'm very thankful for. I grew up in the Carmel, Pebble Beach, Monterey area. And I feel like maybe that kind of saved me from some of the pitfalls that might have happened.
Hollywood today feels like it's walking on eggshells. Most actors are scared to death of saying the wrong thing, and they're constantly tiptoeing around anything politically sensitive. One wrong word, one misplaced comment, and their careers could be on the chopping block. That's why so many of them either stay silent or parrot whatever the right opinion is at the moment. But then you've got Clint Eastwood, and he's the complete opposite. He doesn't play by those rules. At 94 years old, Clint's been around long enough to see the industry change, and instead of bending to its demands, he's remained outspoken and true to himself.
We see people accusing people of being racist and all kinds of stuff. When I grew up, those things were not called racist.
Clint's approach to Hollywood's shift toward woke culture is a giant middle finger to the system. While everyone else is worried about being cancelled or saying something offensive, Clint has no problem stepping right into the fire. He's not afraid to call it as he sees it. Look at his career and how he has always played these tough, no-nonsense characters like Dirty Harry, who said, "Go ahead, make my day." That attitude isn't just a movie persona, it's Clint's real-life mindset. He's got no time for the political correctness that's taken Hollywood over. When people tried to cancel him for a joke he made decades ago, Clint didn't apologize or try to smooth things over. He just kept going. He's built a career on standing tall, and that hasn't changed just because Hollywood decided to get soft.
Now, Clint Eastwood, he talked about political correctness in a new Esquire magazine interview. Here's the quotes. "Everybody's getting tired of political correctness. Kissing up. That's the kiss-ass generation. I'm sorry I used that word. Generation we're in right now. Everybody's walking on eggshells."
Clint Eastwood has made it clear. He's got no time for cancel culture or the political correctness that seems to be swallowing up Hollywood. And honestly, it's refreshing to hear someone who isn't afraid to push back. Clint has been very vocal about what he sees as the growing fascistic nature of political correctness, not just in Hollywood, but across the board in places like Washington and Wall Street. He's watched as the industry has become more concerned with not offending anyone than with telling real, pretty stories. It's almost like everyone's afraid to say anything these days.
The mainstream media driving this leftist message of political correctness and also just social engineering from the left. And I think that's a problem. But when you look at Donald Trump, he does step in it and he goes too far and he says things that people will sit back and say, you know what, that's just wrong.
He can't hold himself back.
Clint has always been the kind of guy who speaks his mind. He's called out this culture of constant outrage where one wrong move can get you cancelled. It's ridiculous when you think about it. People are digging up jokes and comments from 50 years ago, trying to hold them to today's standards. Take Clint's joke from the 1973 Oscars about cowboys being shot in westerns. Back then, it was a lighthearted comment. Today, people want to label him as problematic for something said decades ago. Clint's response? Nothing. He's not going to apologize for a joke he made in a different era, and he shouldn't have to.
Marlon Brando and the Godfather, Miss Shasheen Littlefeather.
On live television at Brando's request, the 26-year-old activist and actress made her way to the stage in a beaded buckskin dress and moccasins. At the podium, she declined the Best Actor Oscar.
Back in 1973, the Academy Awards had one of its most memorable moments. Marlon Brando, who won the Oscar for his role in The Godfather, refused to accept the award. Instead, he sent Native American activist Shasheen Littlefeather to decline it on his behalf in protest of how Hollywood treated Native Americans. It was a heavy moment. The room was tense and everyone was unsure of how to react. And then Clint Eastwood stepped in to present the next award, and being Clint, he lightened the mood with a quick, sharp comment. He joked about presenting the award on behalf of all the cowboys shot in all the John Ford Western over the years.
Clint confirmed Christina's passing in a statement to The Hollywood Reporter July 19th, telling the outlet, "Christina was a lovely, caring woman. I will miss her very much." The Gran Torino star reportedly first met Christina when she was working as a hostess at his Mission Ranch Hotel and restaurant in Carmel by the Sea, California.
Back then, that comment was seen for what it was, a joke. A bit of wit to ease the tension in the room. People laughed and it was over. But fast forward to today, and that same comment has been dug up and dissected by the woke mob who want to paint Clint as insensitive or even racist. They've taken a lighthearted remark from over 50 years ago and twisted it into something it never was. This is cancel culture at its finest, finding things from the past to be outraged over as if the context of the time doesn't matter. Gran Torino is probably one of Clint's best examples of unfiltered storytelling. The movie is raw, unapologetic, and doesn't hold back in its portrayal of race, culture, and personal growth. Clint plays Walt Kowalski, a grizzled, racist war veteran who eventually forms an unlikely friendship with his Hmong neighbors. From the beginning of the movie, it's clear that it isn't your typical sanitized Hollywood film. The language is harsh, the stereotypes are in your face, and it doesn't shy away from showing the reality of how people like Walt think and speak. What makes Gran Torino so powerful is its honesty. Walt's character is flawed, deeply flawed, but that's what makes his eventual growth so meaningful. It's not about sugarcoating or pretending everything is perfect. The movie forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, and that's why it resonates with so many people. Audiences appreciate its brutal honesty because in a world where everything is overly polished to avoid offending anyone, Gran Torino doesn't care. It tells the story the way it needs to be told without worrying about stepping on toes. Clint Eastwood has always been about telling stories that most of Hollywood would be too afraid to touch today. Look at his films like Unforgiven, $1 Million Baby, and American Sniper. These aren't feel-good, easy-to-watch movies. They're gritty and uncomfortable, and they hit you with harsh realities about life, morality, and the cost of violence. That's what makes them so powerful. Clint doesn't sugarcoat anything, and he doesn't worry about whether his films might upset someone. In Unforgiven, Clint turned the Western genre on its head. It wasn't the romanticized cowboys and heroes story Hollywood had been feeding us for decades. It showed the ugliness of violence and the toll it takes on a person's soul. $1 Million Baby? That film didn't just tell a simple underdog sports story, it dragged you into the raw emotional trauma of loss, regret, and death. And American Sniper? Well, that one stirred up a ton of controversy for its unapologetic look at the life of a soldier and the harsh realities of war. Clint didn't back down from showing how brutal and messy it all is. He wasn't concerned about playing nice with the anti-war crowd or those uncomfortable with the idea of patriotism being explored in that way. These films stand in stark contrast to the sanitized, politically correct, safe movies Hollywood pumps out these days. More and more, studios are afraid to take risks. They don't want to offend anyone or stir up controversy, so they go for the most non-offensive, boring storylines possible. Everything is designed to fit the woke mold, where the goal is to avoid backlash rather than tell a story that makes people think. But Clint isn't interested in making safe films. He's from a different era where movies were supposed to challenge you, make you uncomfortable, and force you to confront difficult truths.
TV news anchor Dina Ruiz in 1996, followed by their divorce in 2014. And despite the couple being notoriously private about their relationship, Christina did accompany the filmmaker to many events, including the 2015 Academy Awards.
Clint's 2020 film Richard Jewell is another perfect example of him refusing to bow to woke Hollywood. This film took direct aim at media sensationalism, and in today's world, that's a huge risk. The movie tells the story of Richard Jewell, a man who went from hero to villain overnight after being wrongfully accused of bombing the 1996 Atlanta Olympics. The media, hungry for a story, painted Jewell as the guilty party before any real evidence emerged. His life was turned upside down by a rush to judgment, and Clint saw this as a story that needed to be told. Richard Jewell wasn't just a criticism of the media, though, it was also a jab at cancel culture. Jewell was essentially cancelled by the media without any real proof, much like how today's cancel culture jumps on someone based on rumors or a misunderstood statement. Clint used the film to show the dangers of these narratives and how they can destroy innocent lives. The media didn't like it, of course, and some critics accused Clint of taking cheap shots at journalists. But the reality is that Clint wasn't afraid to highlight the dark side of sensationalism and how dangerous it can be when people jump to conclusions without all the facts.